Welcome to another episode of the podcast Relatively Famous. I am Chip White, and my famous relative is Vanna White of Wheel of Fortune. I think that qualifies me to have a podcast about relatives of famous people. And today we're going to have Scott Cooper on as a guest, and he's actually live in studio, which is really cool, our comic book studio. Scott is the cousin of Leonard Nimoy, so this is going to be really interesting. The cool thing is, I just met Scott. I know nothing about him other than the conversations we had, so this is going to be a true conversation. Now, prior to that, if you're looking for a family vacation and you want somewhere really cool to go, visit myrtlebeach.com has all the info for visiting Myrtle Beach, my hometown, 90 miles of beach, 90-something world-class golf courses, 2,000 restaurants. It's a very family-friendly beach. If you happen to have autistic children or autistic adults or sensory-sensitive children, visit myrtlebeach.com wants you to know that the beach is for everybody, and they promote and have specific businesses that will cater to that. So if you are looking for a vacation with an autistic child, visit myrtlebeach.com, has all the information. And if you just want to have a great vacation, go to visitmyrtlebeach.com. So with that being said, let's welcome Scott to the set.
Relatively Famous Podcast with Chip White.
Scott, welcome to Relatively Famous.
Thank you. Great to be here.
We literally just met.
Yes,
so
5 minutes ago.
Yeah,
Really.
I know nothing about you other than the conversation we had, so this is going to be fun. Let's get it off the table because that's what the show is about. You are
Leonard Nimoy's cousin. My mother's maiden name is Nimoy, so you can't get any more science fiction or Star Trekier than that.
And I have to ask, we did talk a little bit about it really fast. You did get to meet Leonard several times.
Yes, at family events, bar mitzvahs, and all the other family little things. So it was kind of nice. And, you know, when he was young and all that. So very, very great man, very knowledgeable and very smart. You know, just an amazing hospital man. Never talked down to you, talked to you. So it was really kind of nice. And not knowing who or how powerful he was in the sci-fi fantasy world, because, you know, I was like, oh, it's Leonard. You know, that was it. You know, not realizing how or what he was going to do from there on in. So
yeah. Now we did have a little conversation. Unlike myself, who blatantly goes out and says, "I'm Vanna White's brother, and I have a talk show or a podcast or whatever," you've been very secretive about your relationship and not using the Nimoy name.
Yes.
Let us know why, because it was a very fascinating story to me.
Because, again, when I moved out to LA for a job, I did not want to move out there using my family's name. I thought it's best to use the Cooper, which is my father's name, and I wanted to make it on my own. I did not want to be stigmatized as, oh, you use your family name to make it in the industry. So I wanted to go out there, become an artist, establish myself as an artist under the name Scott Cooper, hating my first name, but just going that way and not telling anyone for years. And I had friends that finally figured it out after a while. They were like, "You kidding me? How long have I known you?" I was like, it was quiet. And it took me like even a year until I told my wife my mother's maiden name, and she hit me. she punched me, but, you know, she was like, "You're kidding me." Like, and then our marriage is synchronicity. She's my ride or die gal and pal, so we have this weird connection of Star Trek fandom, onium, and all this stuff. So
yeah, I like the fact that you didn't tell her for a year.
Yeah,
tell everybody why that is so significant, because
her mother, it was one of the bigger players helping to build Star Trek or even science fiction conventions in San Antonio or around the Houston, Dallas area. And when Star Trek or even Comic-Cons were in the bottom and basements of churches before what it is now. So she knew Leonard, all the cast, and also I'm drawing a blank from William and Scotty and all the other stuff. So she knew all these people before him, and Sarah would help her promote these things. So she knew the cast and the crew as well and became friends with them. So she just knew them as well as friends besides being Star Trek things. So It's just that weird synchronicity, I guess. And we met out in North Hollywood, and I always laugh at this because we met at a bar. Like, you're not supposed to meet your significant other at a bar. Like, I did. And we just celebrated our 36th anniversary, and we've been together, ride or die gal, and just doing everything we wanted to do, and just doing it that way. So we had this weird Star Trek link that we didn't know. I never thought it would happen because, again, I just never wanted to let anyone know the Nimoy name, because, again, I didn't want to be stigmatized as an artist as like that, using that. And because there is something tattooed on my forearm, it says family, creative power, loyalty. And that's I live and die by that. That's my thing. So I just didn't want anyone to know. I just want to do what I want to do and just be that way. Because if you're coming from anyone living out in Hollywood or even Los Angeles, you know that it could be very picky. It could be very snobbish. I'll say it. I really don't care. I mean, it's a very cliquey crowd and all that stuff. So I kept it quiet for years until I felt who I wanted to tell it to, who I didn't want to tell it to. And I just wanted to be me. I wanted to be accepted for me, and not, oh, you're Leonard's cousin. Oh, this. And I'm like, so.
Yeah, and see, I went out there, I'm like, what do you mean you're not going to open the doors? What do you mean you're not going to give me money? I'm Vanna's brother, and when it wasn't happening, it wasn't her fault. The fact was, I wasn't even, I was knee deep into doing blow and drinking all the time and stuff. So no one's like going to like, dude, we're not giving you jack squat because you're going to blow it. Right. But in my mind, my ego was like, but I'm Vanna's brother. It's like, I'm in my 20s, so
Oh yeah, and especially living out in LA, that it's a very, like I said, cliquish, and you can fall into that world because my wife owned a rehearsal studio out there, and seeing all that as well, on the verge of seeing all these crazy bands coming and going, getting to meet them, becoming friends with them. So it was just a weird industry, and knowing how to behave, when to do things and not. So again, I was just more like, I want to be me. I want to take it from me, not for my family's name, and that was it, and quietly. And like I said, I have friends who, for years, are like, you're kidding me. I've known you for like 20 years. You never told me that. Like, you didn't realize you never put the Nimoy name together, because the Nimoys are not a big family. It's a very small clique family. So it's not like, oh, the Smiths or the Joneses. Nimoys are Nimoys, and that's it. Boom. So, and it's just laughing at watching people, like the bulb go off, like, I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm sorry that you took you this long to realize.
It's all right.
Yeah.
So you were talking earlier a little bit about growing up in New York before you went to LA, and it was a pretty tough hood.
Neighborhood, yes.
Yeah.
Right outside Coney Island, Brighton Beach. I grew up in an all-black and Puerto Rican neighborhood. I was the only white kid there. I was born in Texas. Parents moved me there when I was 5 years old. The summer of '69, that was the kind of cool thing I realized. That I didn't oh man, I landed in New York in the summer of '69. And from there, got indoctrinated to the Nimoy family and the Cooper family. And my journey began of my art career as well, and doing all this stuff to become an artist. And that's the thing good about my family. They, being an artist, like it's like, an artist is like, be a doctor or be Leonard. Look at, be someone and then do the art. But they always allow me to follow my dream and go through all my schooling, as I would say, from elementary school, out of elementary school, all the way to college and to my master's, is art. I'm one of the, I jokingly tell people, I'm one of the few people that I know who's classically trained artist in the arts. From this, to be who I have to be, what I need to do to become an artist, that's what I thought it was, to follow that art degree and have the luck to be in New York City with all the galleries, the museums, the education, and have all this luckily vibrant art around me, and to be influenced by it. So it was really kind of crazy, but great life.
Yeah. So you were doing art, but we also, a little conversation we said, you went into graphic arts in LA, and were there for the digital transfer.
Right. I actually went out. My degrees. So jokingly, I am the fool that did this. I took 3 degrees in 4 years. So I had 3 BFAs: BFA in cartooning, illustration, and animation. I had master's teachers. Like, my teachers were the best of the best of the best, like Eisner and all these people. I had a job with Filmation to go work on He-Man. So I moved out to L.A., and that's when everything kind of shifted to Korea. So they said, we can't hire you, we're downstepping. So then my wife said, hey, you should learn these computer things. It's coming out. Learn this. This is going to be the thing. I was like, no, I'm an artist. I'm a traditional artist. How dare I break this thing? So I went there when it went from traditional paste-up mechanicals to digital, when Adobe came out, the Apples came out. And so for over 30 years, I've been in the graphic design industry. I realized, hey, I can make money. I'm not a starving artist, but that way it helped me, allowed me to follow my art career and do what I wanted, so I wasn't a starving artist. That's when my wife met me, and luckily she was making more money than me, and I really didn't care about that, but she also allowed me to follow my dream, and it was really nice about the whole thing. So yeah, it was crazy time because no one knew what was going on, and this is way before the web, so we couldn't just Google it. We had to figure everything out on the fly, and beta testing Photoshop, Illustrator, Quark before now, InDesign, all these softwares where there was no manuals, there was nothing, and just learning it on the fly and trying to figure everything out and trying to retain everything in your head as you went along.
So what were some of the things you worked on in LA with graphic design? 'Cause we did talk about that.
I still have clients from Paramount Studios, A&M Records, Capitol Records, and all the other stuff. And I'm glad to that because they allow me to learn the business side of the graphic design, how to become a designer, how to talk, how to walk, how to behave, and work on major projects and all that stuff. So a lot of it was what's it called? NDAs, I had to sign all these forms, but the ones I really appreciated was The Last Action Hero. That was kind of a really funny thing because I remember being in the studio with the vice president of Paramount Studios, 2 a.m, we're getting all the stuff ready for him to take it out, to get it shot and get it printed for the movie. And I'm there at 2 a.m. in shorts, t-shirt. He's in a suit and tie, ready to jump on the plane to take this film to get it printed and all that for The Last Action Hero, the thing. So it's one of those weird, I guess, bucket list or oddity moments that, I was like, I never thought I'd be here, and having to learn this craft and to do this and to see how it will work, how to be, because this is, to me, it was like, okay, this is going to be the new way. This is going to be the new future. So if you want to stay relevant and be in this industry, you better learn this. Because I tell a lot of the story to my friends, and they jokingly say, when I started doing this graphic design, they would laugh at me. They like you're a traitor to the fine arts. Yeah. How dare you do this Photoshop stuff and all this stuff? And I was like, I want to make money. I'm making good money. I'm sorry, right? So they lambasted. They felt like I got kicked out of the fine arts world. Then, as they realized that they needed to learn this Photoshop, they'd call me up. Hey, Scott, can you teach me that Photoshop? I was like, no. Go learn it on your own. Goodbye. Like, what are you going to be like? Because you lambasted me. You told me that I was a traitor, that I'm learning the devil's work. This is never going to be, this is a trend, a fad. And I was like, whatever, and I was like, learn on your own. And I was like, wow, you're mean. I'm like, I'm just going to be me. I don't care. I mean, you told me, that you literally kicked me out of the art world because I became a graphic designer. And I was like, nah, that's fine.
I think some of that goes back to our conversation about your childhood and some of the kids you were growing up with and the loyalty and
it's just that learning to be who you are and trust who you are and who you want to be and just be yourself, but make sure you surround yourself with the right people and follow your dreams. Don't ever lose sight of your dreams because, as I always tell my students, I'm also a college professor. I always tell people, your career is here. It might backdoor your way you're in there. It's never going to be a straight path. I always thought it was growing up, oh yeah, I'm just going to be an artist, I'm going to make a lot of money and boom, boom. But I realized if I can still stay within the art industry or art community, I'll get in there somehow. I'll make a name for myself and all that stuff. And I've been blessed with a lot of mentors, a lot of famous mentors, other artists that you probably never heard of, but it's just a great way to enjoy this lifestyle and to maintain a lifestyle and to do what I wanted to do all my life and not have to become a bookkeeper or a lawyer and then retire, then go into the arts. Because I've seen so many people do that because all my schooling was all art. That's all I know and that's all I wanted to do. So it was like, ride or die, we're going, and my wife followed me and she allows me to do all my crazy stuff and saw the talent and the passion I have for it. That's the really thing. Because I tell everyone, I draw, paint, design 2 or more hours a night.
Okay.
to keep my skills. So if you're going to be an artist and you want to be the best of the best, and there's always going to be someone better than you, I understand that. But if you want to hone your skills, you got to keep practicing them. So I do that every night. Like I'll paint, I'll draw, I'll do Photoshop, I'll do Illustrator. I'll have to do something just to make sure that I am not going to be slackish when time comes and try to fake it. Right. And that's just me, how I am.
So you said you're a professor, and I understand you're moving.
Yes, I am moving to Vietnam. I was got a job as a kind of oddly enough a senior lecturer in there, but then on the interview, I got bumped up to program chair and department chair to create a whole new multimedia thing with 3D and I don't want to say animation, but 3D AR, because 3D is really a big subject now coming through, and how to incorporate it with graphic design, illustration, and fine arts. How you can incorporate all that to make art. So I'm off to Korea very shortly. Sorry, Vietnam. Why did I say that? My God.
I think two different countries.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's why I was like, that's not right.
Yeah, well, my son said he went there recently and said the food's phenomenal.
Yeah. I'm nervous as all hell, but at the same time excited for the new. As I was telling people, one chapter closes, one opens. So I'm looking to see new culture, new students, and to broaden my own horizon, because that's where you have to come. You have to keep moving along, and if you stagnate, you're going to get bored, you're going to feel bad, and then I don't want to what if. I tell everyone this. I don't want to sit around like when I'm 70, 80 or whatever. What if I didn't went to LA? What if I rather what if, or go out there, fail, at least, but I tried. And that's what I always try to tell everyone. You have to try. And failure is not failure. Failure is learning. And that way you know what you can do and what you can't do. And then you figure out how to fix it and make it work for you, so that way you did it. And I've seen so many people and so many of my colleagues and friends where they went to school, got failed, didn't get the job, and they were out and they became something else. And I'm like, in my head, it's kind of funny. It's like, that's a bad business sense. Like you went to high school and you went to college and you're not using your degree. And that was always my burning, or there's like a push in my drive to do that. And luckily my schooling was very well. I got to be around a lot of famous artists who are now famous artists, but then we were just stupid high school art students and college students. Like you figure, like, you think we can make money doing this crap? And they are. And to be able to reach out to them on a daily basis or even a weekly basis and to write to them and have that. So it's really amazing. I'm very blessed. So I want to make sure that everyone has the same opportunity as I did to say, yes, do this, don't. It really is. It's well worth it. Yeah,
I was having a conversation with my son yesterday, actually, about, look, you don't know where your journey's going to go. You don't know where your life's going to go. You got to be open to it. I've had friends that changed my life and career because they called and said, I want you to do something. Right. And I said, well, I don't know how. And they said, yeah, you do, and I'm going to pay you X. I'm like, I think I can do that.
Yeah.
So to being open to it, it's a great experience.
Right.
And you were talking about the business end of it. I've been in film and television for 40 years on top before the podcast, and I mentor young filmmakers. And my thing is like, dude, you got to learn the business. Right. If you're an actor, if you're a graphic designer, an artist, right. It's a business.
Yes. And that's the thing. That's the bad thing about it. They don't teach you in school. They never taught you that part in school. Yeah. Because they taught you the craft. They taught you the thing. And that was the funny thing about it is the reason why I went back and I went into teaching, because there were a lot of people when I moved to Texas were complaining how the students were coming out of art schools, didn't know crap, they were really bad. But I was like, I'm going to take my 30 years of business at that time that I learned on the job, because there's a difference of going to school, learning something, and then on the job there's something way different. Something just happened, you had to problem solve and figure it out. I want to bring that back to the classroom so that all my students were ready for it. And they knew it's a business as well. So I did a lot of the upper courses where we do contract writing and all this stuff, so they know how to approach it. And that way they could job interview. So they knew to be confident in themselves, and they knew they could get that job that they always wanted to do and not have to worry about questioning themselves and figuring no, they were ready to go, and they were talented enough to say, yes, I'm worth this position and this much money, which a lot of people think that's ego, but it's more confidence. If you have confidence in yourself,
well, it's also business.
Yeah, it is.
There are a lot of broke artists and some rich gallery owners because the artist didn't know how to read a contract.
Yeah. Yeah. Simple little things. It's really amazing. And it's just like, that's what I saw when learning about education and academia was no one talked about contracts or like how much you charge per hour, and I still contact, and a lot of my students still contact me through like instant messenger texting. Hey, I'm writing up a contract. Can you take a look at this? Is this right or is this wrong? How much I should charge for this and that? I wanted to give them that so that way they didn't know and undersell themselves. That's the whole thing. You have to know a worth of your being, because you have a talent. You're a special person. Without that, I don't want you to be taken advantage of, because that happened to me. I was there, so I'm speaking from the truth. So I'm like, hey, man, no, I want to take my life lessons, pass them along, and hopefully let everyone else just enjoy their careers and go from there. So.
Yeah. Okay, so we're obviously in the comic book shop,
yes.
and this is how we met.
I know.
And we're talking about how Star Trek, you can't get away from it.
Yes.
And we'll hit on that. It's funny because since I've been doing this, Star Trek is crossing in my path all the time. One of our past episodes is with John Whitney DeWick, who was Grace Lee Whitney's son, who was Yeoman Rand. And great interview, and I had done the story with his mom years ago, and you're now here all of a sudden.
Yeah, boom,
it's Star Trek,
Yeah,
and
Star Trek mania.
So, but you came in because you're moving, and
right.
Philip, my producer,
right.
and dude, you brought some amazing things to him. How does it? What's it like to, hate to say this in a way, to suddenly say I'm going to give away my childhood toys, which we'll talk about why you have them, because you're moving.
Because I wanted to give someone.
You can show that.
Here we go. This is something that's very, you don't see. This man, that man doesn't sign anything.
So for those on the audio version of this, he is holding up a Vulcan 1 signed by Gene Roddenberry, and Gene Roddenberry never signed anything.
Nothing.
Vulcan 1 was one of the very first
Comic Cons, Star Trek cons, sci-fi conventions, and all that stuff. So yeah, I wanted to give it to someone. I could sell it, but then it was like, well, that's a lot of work. But I wanted to give it to someone who would appreciate it and really would love it, and as much as I did. So it's like gifting, and I figured it's also like kind of karma. I'm going to give it to them, and they'll do something else and all that. But I know that they'll appreciate it more. For me, that's the best part. It was like, oh, you're going to love this just as much as I am. Not like, oh, thank you, that's a sweet gift.
Yeah.
Like, well, that was just, Yeah. So, and just having that weird thing, because this came from my mother-in-law's collection. We were gifted the largest Star Trek collection in the world, and Philip probably has, 3/4 of it now, probably, at least.
Okay, so your mother, step back real quick. Your mother-in-law
is Judith Ward.
And what did they call her?
So her title, I guess, in the fandom was Lord Admiral Ma'am God Sir. So that was her title. And it was great because I would walk in there and I'd sit down next to her and people were like, no, what are you doing? That's Judith Ward. How do you know? I was like, I don't care. Pretending like it wasn't my mother-in-law. And like, oh, they're like, dude, you can't talk to her like that. And I'm like, that's my mother-in-law. And my mother-in-law would love me. So she'd come over and give me kisses and hugs. And then people were like, oh my God. And I'm like, sorry. I married into the family, which I didn't know. It was kind of that weird odyssey of my wife's dealing with it on the Star Trek side as well. So our synchronicity, weirdness of meeting, and back to Star Trek again.
Yeah. Dude, I think for 40 years, the universe has just been pounding on you. It's like, dude, you're Nimoy, just accept it. And, you're just like holding the shield up.
Exactly. Right. And I always joke about when I meet people now these days, I go like, Star Trek or Star Wars fan? And they're like, Star Wars. Like, well, can't be friend of you. Why? And they're like, no, I'm just kidding. Because without Star Trek, you wouldn't have Star Wars. And it's the truth. And Gene Roddenberry and everyone says that. Even the guys from Star Wars said, without Star Trek, we wouldn't be able to do all that. Hokey as that show was, it made a lot of movies and made a lot of cool things and do stuff like that. So it was just an amazing time in the film industry as well.
And it is amazing when you go back and you watch them. It's pretty cheesy and the sets and stuff.
Yeah. But back then it was high tech.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Oh, the doors.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
But the movies that came from it.
Oh yeah.
They
Spawn series, people, careers.
Yeah.
It's like here's a weird side thing. When we got married, so we got married the next day. We're having the breakfast, thing, right? Kind of hungover, all right? I'm sorry. We had in my wife's studio, we had 6 rock bands there, right? Yeah, we had 6 bands there. We had tour buses just on the back seat. They would go out there, play the show, come back. So I'm hungover. I'm trying to eat, just trying to like not even move my head. And all of a sudden, I forgot his name. Scotty from Star Trek was on the next table, and he says to my mother-in-law, he goes, Judith, Sarah, how you doing? I'm like, holy crap, not again. So he leaves his party, and he comes over to my party, he sits down and starts talking to us, and the whole table is like, oh my God, it's Scotty from Star Trek. And I'm like, and they're like, oh, that's our friend and all that. And we're like, and I'm like, hi, how you doing? Like, I can't look, I just can't raise my head. But yeah, it's just that weird life and odyssey, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know, yeah.
So, and you've had a very extreme life
Yeah.
in the entertainment and art and everything.
Mm-hmm.
With the studio, what's kind of the favorite band, or have you ever been starstruck? Let me rephrase this.
Yes.
Have you ever been starstruck to a point where you're like,
Oh, many times. Because I remember growing up in New York and watching them being on stage, me being in the crowd. Now I'm in their backyard, barbecuing, hanging out, and even at my wife's rehearsal studio. I remember one time I was in my friend's condo. The band was called Dramarama. All right, and I'm sitting there hanging out with them, just chilling. All of a sudden, knock on the door, comes in, and here comes Joey Ramone. I'm like, Joey Ramone, oh my God, one of my favorite bands. And I'm like, he goes, hey dude, I'm in town, just seeing what you guys doing. And I'm like, so for like 2 hours or so, we're just hanging out with Joey Ramone, and he leaves, and I'm like, I guess this is LA, this is my life. So I met a lot of bands, a lot of friends musicians who are now my friends, which are really crazy because I could reach out to them and talk to them, and they're very influential in the rock world. So it's like, again, I never thought I would be there and all that, meeting Jane's Addiction, hanging out with Jane's Addiction, and all these people, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, so many bands passed through that studio. But it also gave me a pathway into graphic design as more, because I learned a lot about the music industry, because that's what I love. I wanted to follow my love of music, art, and all this stuff, and TV and film, so I wanted to just go there. So my clients, like I said, were Paramount Studios, A&M Records, Capitol Records, and all that stuff. So I was like, I want to stay inside the industry where I love, not what I have to do, and then I could just spawn out or go out from there.
we know they're starting to reprint a lot of vinyl now, so maybe you can do some album covers, because that, as a kid, man, the album cover, you looked at the art, you look who made it,
but that back then they were all done by hand, and it was shot, and it wasn't digital. So to me, that's always a more fascinating how they did it, and knowing how they did it is such time, labor, to get it done and all that stuff. So that would always and now it's easy just to pump out. And now I'm sorry to say, I'm going to say this, but now people are just going to be pumping out AI bullshit for albums. And I'm like, I'll say it, but that's it. But they're not true design. It's just like you can write words, but can you control the software?
Yeah.
And I will stand on that to the end, because I know I can rock any software. Easy, because I practice it and I learn it. And I also, like I said, I also work with Adobe, doing a lot of beta testing and working with them. So,
well, I think you should hand paint a really great album cover for a band.
I'd rather do that. I'd rather do everything traditionally and then move it to the digital side and finish it up on the digital side. So I'm always both. I have no qualms. If I have to do it quickly on the digital side, that's fine. But for me, boom. But I also, for the last few years, I started transposing my business to children's book illustrations. So doing everything hand illustration, and that's what I fell in love with when I went to school for that art, is illustration and all that stuff. So I'll always go back to traditional art, because again, as I jokingly say, if you kids are doing something and your internet goes down, you're screwed because you don't know what to do. I can go there and draw something and create something and do it that way.
Yeah.
So I'd rather do traditional every day.
I took a nude drawing at Beverly Hills High School years ago, and it was charcoal and pencil and stuff. And when we moved years ago, we were about to move, and I pulled this stuff out of the attic and went, hey, wow, I literally sold 25 of my 35 drawings on the internet for like $35 a piece. Hey, I told them when I win an Emmy, now when I win a Podfest thing, they'll be worth more.
There you go. Yeah, exactly.
So I'm going to backtrack really quick. You came in with an amazing collection of toys.
Yes.
How do you have all these toys, and why?
Growing up in that neighborhood, I was a poor kid, and I didn't have it. My parents, we were broke, so I never had toys. So when I grew up, going in and becoming a graphic designer, making money, my friend introduced me, when I moved back to New York to be with my grandfather, my friend introduced me toy collecting, which was the worst thing ever, because I had a whole room plastered with toys all over the ranch. So I was like, I'm going to relive my childhood because I jokingly tell everyone I'm a kid with a credit card, which is not a really good thing. So I just started collecting toys that I wanted and to have and to be, and not expecting ever to move to Vietnam, but to have a room, to have memories of my toyhood and my collection and just my childhood, just to be able to do this and to buy things. And I always tell everyone you should be able to go buy something frivolous in your lifetime, because it's just a great feeling to buy something stupid. Like you really don't, I don't really need it, but I can afford it. And it's just nice to have that moment of time to do this. And the toys were, like I said, were just, reliving my childhood and all that stuff. So it was kind of fun. So I blame one of my friends for that, but in a good way.
Did you at least take pictures of everything so you can always look back and go, hey, look.
Oh, yeah,
look what I gave Philip,
I literally would take the toys and I'd pin them on the wall, and they would be all the wallpaper in my former living room. And even in the china closet, I put toys instead of things. My wife's like, oh, you and your goddamn toys. I'm like, hey, I don't care. She had sewing equipment and all that other stuff. So it was just one of those things, but it was also knowing down the road how they're going to become valuable, because they were unopened, they weren't touched. And if I wanted to open one, I'd buy two. Okay. Hang one up, open one up, so that way, because a lot of them I knew were going to worth something, and it's going to be a memory. And even if I give it to someone, they're going to have fun with it. Like, oh my God, like I have the tick. When Phil saw the tick, the talking tick, they're like, dude, it's still in the box. You know what I mean? That's crazy. Yeah. But those are things I wanted to do and have, and just be able to do it.
What do you think your adventure in Vietnam is going to be like?
Hopefully it's going to be madness. In a good madness, because I'm looking forward to, as I always say, the good thing about moving, I always said, you can reinvent yourself. Your past is your past, and you can become who you really want to be. But I'm also looking into the new art world, the new art scene, administration work, education, and culture. So I'm looking forward to this. So I'm a curious kid. I was always a curious kid. Still am a curious guy, boy, whatever you want to call me, man. I'm just looking forward to seeing it and to live it. Instead of seeing it on TV, reading it in books, to literally be there and touch it. And to do that and to smell and eat the food, like oh my God, So I'm really excited about that whole concept of that. Not excited about flying halfway across the world, but for your career, it's going to look good on my CV. It's going to look good on everything, and hopefully it will even promote me, even get me more out there in the world, because I even said when the World Wide Web came out, I was like, you guys can have Texas. I want the world. Yeah. I want world domination, because I want to be able to sell paintings, which I have sold paintings and drawings all over the world. So I have a lot of stuff hanging all over the world. And I just want to be able to experience more. And hopefully it'll, I don't say change me, but it'll influence me in my art, or maybe put me in a new direction for a new type of art as well. So I'm always open to try new things, because otherwise, if you stay stagnant, you're just going to be another artist. Yeah. And you have to grow. Even as a human being, you have to grow.
Well, I'll be your pinky, you be the brain, and we'll take over the world.
Hell yeah! And which I 3D printed.
Exactly. Couple more questions.
Sure.
Are you embracing the Nimoy name more now than before?
Yes, I am.
And
yeah.
why?
Well, me and my wife are joking, like, maybe we should just take you back and just rechange your name to Nimoy. Like, then all the documents I have to do. It's like, no. But I am more forth of that and letting people know who I am and do that. I love when I do that to people. I go like, okay, I'll give you a countdown. So my mother named me Nimoy, and then all of a sudden, like, I go 3, 2, and like, holy crap! And they really get it, because like, again, the Nimoy is not like a Smith, Jones, Cooper. It's not a popular name. It's it's associated with Leonard. It's boom. So it's that straight point to there, and then people go Star Trek, and I'm like, yeah, that's me.
Well, then do they just pound you for Star Trek innuendos, or not innuendos, but information or trivia and stuff?
a little bit. Like, so how do you feel? What was it like and all that? I'm like, and then they can see. I try to give off the body vibe or something. Like, I'll talk about it or I won't talk about it. It really depends on the person who I talk to, and if they're really into it, yes. If not, it just work on my nerves. I don't. And again, that's jokingly, like I said to you, that's why I don't like my first name, because growing up with Star Trek, everything was Scott related to Star Trek, and I was a kid, had to be polite, had to be calm. Now I'm an adult. I have a mouth. And I try to tamper that mouth, but at the same time, I know if I don't say things right, I can get in trouble. But that's me. That's who I'm going to be. I mean, I'm going to be myself, and if that's going to aggravate you, I'm sorry. Then I don't want you to be in my life. I don't need you in my life. And it's just plain and simple. And people, you're just so cut and dry. I'm like, that's who I am.
Life's short, man.
Life's short, exactly. Like I said, I don't want to what if it and do anything else. I'm going to go.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay, last question.
Uh-oh.
What did I not ask you, or what did you really want to share that we didn't talk about?
Ooh, there's a lot. There's a lot to unwrap in this thing. That's a loaded question, dude. That is a loaded question.
Give me the full
no
potato answer.
No, there's a lot there where I can get in a lot of trouble for because of what I've seen, what I've done, been there, done that, and survived. I like growing up in my neighborhood was seeing how bad you can be, especially also being an artist. So I had to walk through. In my neighborhood, there's like 13 gangs. They're 13 blocks long, 3 blocks wide. So every block had a gang. So I had to walk 2 blocks to the train station. So they would be throwing things at me, yelling at me, trying to beat me up every day because I'm walking with a portfolio and a knapsack, and they didn't know what an artist was, and a white kid. So I learned street thugness, how to do really bad things. I didn't want to be that. I did not want to wind up on the street or being that person, so I went to college. I went to high school, college to get my degrees, so that way I can get the heck out of the streets and not be that person. I wanted to follow my dreams and be the artist and all the other stuff. So that was the tough part of the whole thing. So yeah, that was, as I told you earlier, excuse me, I got fear beat out of me, respect beat into me. And I learned to take a beating very well. And it's like, and I think it helped me a lot now because I could see how people are and all this stuff. But for me, it's just an amazing time. And I grew up in Manhattan because my grandfather, who was an architect engineer. So when I moved, real quick, we moved from 5 to 18, I was doing professional architecture work. He had me hunched over the board learning architecture work in the real world, doing this stuff. He lived in Hell's Kitchen. So again, I went from bad neighborhood to a bad neighborhood, and this little kid running around, working in the architecture world in Hell's Kitchen, but without having all that experience and being allowed to flourish in this thing and having all the museums, the galleries, and all the art world was. I took it for granted. I did not know what I had because I assumed everyone else had the same chance because when you're living you always think everyone has the same chance, right. But to have the Museum of Modern Art and all the galleries to visit, to talk to, and have them in your backyard, to have this resource, very, very lucky. So as I got older, I realized very lucky to have this and very proud, and I'm glad I was there because otherwise I don't think I'd be the person who I am today and where I would be today without the toughness. So because there is, yeah.
Well, you mentioned to give people an idea of the neighborhood, how tough it was, the movie The Warriors.
Yes. That was where I grew up in that time frame. So the movie The Warriors was the gang was really called the Homicides. So it wasn't called The Warriors, but that was just for Hollywood and all this stuff. But yeah, it was in that neighborhood, that thing. So right now, Brighton Beach is called Little Odessa with all the Russians, but back then it was really, 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 really bad. So it was scary times to do that. But that was life, and you assume that's how everyone else lives, but no. Not the people out in Iowa, wherever you want to go and all that stuff. So that's the best way I can relate that time. If you watch that movie, that's how bad the scenes were and city was. It was crime ridden. And growing up when Times Square, and again I'm going to say this, when Times Square was the porn capital of the world, yeah. It was really bad. Now it's Disney. So it really can make or break you as a person and understand what you have. And also the cool thing about that was 1 block over was Broadway. So I was able to also experience that, going from like street thug to go see Broadway shows and have that influence and to see all that, to take that part of culture with me and to learn and to become like, wow, I can get myself out of the streets and make something of myself. And the thing I told my wife when I first met her and I married her, I was like, look, sweetheart, I'm not going to promise you money because I'm going to work my ass off. I'll do it, but it's like I can promise you a great time, crazy stories, but I might be a broke ass artist. that's how it's going to be, and we'll see how it goes. And she married me, and we just celebrated our 36th anniversary. So when I met her, I did not expect to meet my wife out there in the bar in North Hollywood. So, and the world famous Palomino.
Oh, my wife played the Palomino.
Oh yeah, that was a great. Yeah. So you know how it is.
Yeah, God, I love the Palomino.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, God, she played the Palomino. She played the Viper Room.
What band was she in?
She had a couple of bands.
Okay.
The last one was called Get Even.
Okay.
She played with a couple different, never would get some recognition, but never quite.
Right. That industry. That was hard. It's just as being in the music industry. It's like either
you
make it or you
play,
break
man.
it. Yeah. And it was sad to watch being at the rehearsal studio, watching these bands like, dude, this is way better than that, and then watch them break up because of the turmoil, or not getting picked by an A&R rep or something like that, and see people's dreams being crushed, and it's devastating. It really is, and it's, But luckily, like I said, so many friends, so many bands, and can I tell you one quick story about it? So one day, I went down to the rehearsal studio to get her business partner Robin, and I'm walking around, and there's a rule: if the band's playing, wait for the band to finish, then stick your head in and ask the question. So, all right, I'm standing outside Studio A. All right, I'm standing there like, this is kind of cool band. Yeah, right on. All right. So they finish. I stick my hand and go, hey, do you know where Robin is? And they're like, hey, he's somewhere up front. I'm like, okay. I close the door. I'm like, oh, shit. Oh, my God. No way. It was Jane's Addiction. They were rehearsing. Yeah. Right? So I'm like, holy shit. And this was before Jane's Addiction broke up. Oh, and it blew up. So I run up to the front and go, Robin. He goes, yeah, that's Perry Farrell and Jane's Addiction. They're just rehearsing. I'm like, holy shit. And I'm calling my friends, like this was before cell phones. I'm calling them on the phone, like, dude. I call my boss, like, I'm not coming back to work. Because my boss is cool. Like, okay. And he's like, I'll make up the hours later. He goes, okay, whatever. I was like, I wanted to see Jane's Addiction. I'm calling my friends, like, dude, get down to the studio now. Quick. Why? I can't tell you. It's just get down here, promise. Because they knew where I was. They're like, we can't leave work. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, click. Yeah. I walk back to the studio, and I'm standing outside the room, waiting. Let's just listen to him. Like I'm just blown away. Like one of my favorite bands. Like listening to them. They come out like, hey, how you doing? Hey, how you doing? What's going on? Talk and all that, and they go to the coming break, and I'm like, hey, do you want to come back in and listen to us? I'm like, in my head, like, no shit. So they're like, yeah, come on, sit down. So I'm sitting on this little couch in the studio, like it was a private concert. So for the last 2 hours, I'm sitting in the room watching them jam and practice. And then 2 days later, they're going to go play. My friends are buying tickets to go see them and all this stuff. And I was like, I already saw them. I'm like hanging out in the private show, Jane's Addiction. And I'm like, holy crap. And then my friend's like, why didn't you tell me they were there? I'm like, I couldn't tell you who was here because that's the rules of the studio. Yeah. But the people that come and go in my studio, my wife's studio, so that way, come down there. So it was just one of those aha moments again of meeting your people, your friends, and again, sitting there like a little kid, like, I never thought I'd be in this position in my life, this little punky kid from Texas to New York, now living out his dreams in LA.
The office, I worked at King World. In the office building we were in, about 4 floors down was a law firm, and it was Navarro's dad. Oh, wow. So him and Perry would come in to the building, you'd see him and stuff, and then when I worked at Inside Edition, actually was it Inside Edition or MTV? I had to go to the Playboy Mansion to interview Perry Farrell. Nice. Dude, the hardest person in the world to interview.
Oh, yeah. Some days he was great, some days he was an ass.
But I'd ask him the question. He'd go, so what you're asking me is blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, that's not what I'm asking. I'm asking you, so what you're asking me is blah. I'm like, fine, what I'm asking you is blah. Just answer something, dude. Yeah. Anyway. Hey, Scott, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. Great to meet you.
This is phenomenal.
Yeah. This is out in the world, and now it's like, now the world knows. So.
Well, when I come to Vietnam to make my documentary that Charlie Don't Surf, I'm going
to look that was the other thing, living out in L.A. Here's a quick story. A year later, living out there by myself, right? Then my friend's band Dramarama comes out. Christmas, our first Christmas out there, we were broke-ass artists. We can't go back home. We're 3,000 miles away. We have no money. We're sitting on Venice Beach on Christmas in our shorts, T-shirts, and, we're so used to cold weather and all that, and we're just sitting there on the beach like, so this is L.A. I think I get to use this. And we're all sitting on the beach like, this is life. I guess we're going with this. And just sitting on the beach with a rock and roll band with your friend, and it was a very popular and very influential band in the 80s and the 90s. And they're still playing out.
I
Keep
remember
rocking,
Tom
guys.
Morello, yeah.
Oh, my God, yeah. And I toured with them for like a year or 2 years because I was like, you're my friend. I'm just going to hang out with you. I have nothing else to do. And I'm just going to mooch off you guys.
There you go.
But I met so many other people, so many other bands that I fell in love with. And it allowed me to see inside the industry and to have those opportunities. Take it. Take that chance you have to run with it, and don't be afraid, because they come around once in a while. As like, in LA, it's a very small shot of opportunity and who you know and what you know in that town. And it's like,
yeah. Well, Scott, thank you. I really appreciate Scott being here. I love the fact that you guys take your time to listen and watch Relatively Famous. I hope that you will subscribe and tell all your friends. I want to thank Nelco Comics, Nelco Media. I want to thank visitmyrtlebeach.com, our sponsor. And again, if you're looking for an amazing family vacation, go to my hometown. Check it out. There's amazing food. There's amazing seafood. There's amazing golf. I play very poorly, by the way.
Same here.
And the beach is phenomenal. It's very family friendly, and sometimes there's some good surf. visitmyrtlebeach.com. And one last thing, if you happen to be like Scott and related to someone famous and you want to be on the show, give me a holler at podcastrelativelyfamous@gmail.com. podcastrelativelyfamous@gmail.com. I'm always looking for guests. Art, sports, TV, film, music, rodeo, science. If they're famous in that genre, let's chat. All right, thank you.
You've been listening to Relatively Famous with Chip White. Please like and subscribe to Relatively Famous with Chip White.